Prime Minister, Ministers, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Once again, here we are, in the second decade of the Arctic Circle. And we are especially proud and also grateful to all of you that over the years since 2013, you have made the Arctic Circle Assembly the paramount, largest international gathering on the Arctic. And as we saw here in the welcoming video, in addition to the annual assembly here in Iceland, the forums in different parts of the world, in the United States, in Canada, in Britain, in Korea, Japan, China, Singapore, and last summer in Berlin, as well as Abu Dhabi and other places, we have truly made this platform an international gathering, a kind of a global square where anybody who has anything to contribute is welcome to raise his or her voice. The Arctic Circle is not just a platform to discuss this important part of our planet, but it's also a new model of bringing people together in the 21st century. There were many who told me more than 10 years ago it would never work. We would never be able to bring presidents, prime ministers, ministers, leaders of international organizations and others together in an assembly where anyone, young activist or anyone, can stand up and ask a question and have their viewpoint heard. But it works, as all of you know. Now with over 250 sessions, 700 speakers, 2,500 participants from more than 70 countries. It is indeed a unique platform. And this year we are adding two new dimensions to this structure. The first is the Polar Dialogue, which we agreed to take on at the request of the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who called together in Paris of November of last year a Polar Summit. And after discussions in the LEC, we decided to take this on and explored with various other partners how we could do it and transformed it into what you now see, 3 days of Polar Dialogue, which will continue next year, first in January in Abu Dhabi as a part of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. And then in the two forums of the Arctic Circle next year, which we will announce later on in a short time at this stage, one in Asia, one in Europe, and then, of course, again here at the Assembly in October. And we are especially honored that the Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, Her Excellency, Prime Minister for the last 7 years, until last spring, has agreed to become the chair of the Polar Dialogue. And she is joined through the co-chair with Ante Bochers, the director of the Alfred Wegener Institute, perhaps one of the leading scientists in Europe, as well as heading clearly the most formidable polar research institution in our part of the world. And we might, in the next few years, move to other leading scientists so far as the co-chair is concerned. I think it demonstrates already the seriousness of the Polar Dialogue, that not only is this distinguished leadership already in place, but we are announcing here today 4 destinations next year in different parts of the world, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Europe, for the Polar Dialogue to take place. And increasingly we are seeing, and it was reflected at the Polar Summit in Paris hosted by Macron last November, increasingly an emphasis of treating all the ice-covered areas of the world together, whether it's Antarctica, the Arctic, or the ice-covered glaciers in Latin America, the Himalayas, the Third Pole, or elsewhere, because the future of our planet is determined by what happens to the ice. The weather patterns, whether it's the monsoon or the weathers in America or Europe, whether it's rising sea levels, or anything that determines the food production, the weather, the happiness, as well as the survivability of the thousands of coastal cities all over the world, will be determined by what happens to the ice-covered areas. That is why the Polar Dialogue is such a significant addition to the Arctic Circle structure. But I'm also honored to announce here today, for the first time, that in addition to taking on the chairship of the Polar Dialogue, Her Excellency Katrín Jakobsdóttir, former Prime Minister of Iceland, has agreed to become a senior emissary of the Arctic Circle, representing the organizations in different parts of the world, as well as in dialogues and discussions with many of our long-standing partners and countries. And I want to thank her here today for having decided to make this contribution to this global effort. But we have also significantly decided to add the Arctic Circle Business Forum to the gatherings that we are bringing about these 3 days. Of course, we have had a number of business sessions over the years, but there was clearly a need in relation to the growing interest in the energy resources, the other natural resources, the ocean resources, also the challenges with respect to the indigenous people, the environment, and the climate, to create a wider and more permanent platform for an open and effective dialogue among not just CEOs and entrepreneurs and business leaders, but also indigenous people and others, and those who represent the Arctic region. And like the Polar Dialogue, the Business Forum will have a life on its own, which means that in addition to regularly meeting here for 3 days within the Assembly, the Business Forum can also take place in other parts of the world. It can hold its own meetings, small or large, in different continents, different countries with different partners. And in addition to the annual assemblies here in Reykjavik and the forums in different parts of the world, the creation of the Polar Dialogue and the Business Forum is a formidable evidence that the Arctic Circle community is vibrant, dynamic, as well as creative. And unfortunately, due to the various challenges we now face in the world, geopolitical challenges, cultural challenges, geoeconomic challenges, this platform is becoming more and more important. It is, in fact, one of the very few large, open, democratic international platforms around, where people who are interested in constructive solutions to our pressing problems can actually come together and do their own thing, which is important. And I want to thank all of you for having contributed over the years and now in the creation of this model, because it is an important message to the rest of the world that it is possible to find another way. So with these words, I welcome you all, and it gives me great honor to invite the Prime Minister of Iceland, Bjarni Benediktsson, to the stage to make the opening speech. And following his speech, we will have a series of presentations from different leaders from different parts of the world. And as has been our long-standing traditions, they will take questions from you in the audience. So don't forget, this opening session is not just a performance here on the stage. It's also a unique opportunity for all of you to raise questions, state your concerns, and create the dialogue with the people who come here on the stage to represent their different countries, their different institutions. So be quick to raise your hands and grab the microphone from the people who will bring it to you. So with these words, I invite Bjarni Benediktsson, Prime Minister of Iceland, to the stage.